You're listening to the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast. This is the podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs who understand that exponential business growth isn't achieved through traditional business tactics alone, but through personal development, the ultimate leverage point to scale businesses beyond conventional limits. Hosted by Erica Ferenczi, featuring lessons from the Practical, Profitable Mindset program, created by R. John Robbins, Alejandra Leibovich, Erica, and Oscar Ferenczi. And here's your host, Erica Ferenczi.
Welcome to this week's episode. In this episode, we will learn about how it is that you can create an implementation plan that actually will help you get things done efficiently. Why is that so many people set goals, but they never actually achieve them? In today's episode, Oscar will dive deep into one of the biggest gaps between success and frustration, and that is implementation. Most entrepreneurs know what they want. The real challenge is creating a system that turns their priorities into consistent action. Oscar will also explain that while priorities are created consciously, most decisions are made subconsciously. And that disconnect is often the reason why people struggle to follow through on the very goals that they claim that are important for them. One of the top takeaways of today's lesson will be the importance of creating a real implementation plan. Oscar will talk to you about the 5 W's framework, and that is who will do it, what needs to happen, when will it happen, why is it important, and how it will get done. If you do not answer those questions clearly, your goals will remain ideas instead of becoming a powerful reality. The second major lesson will be understanding that successful businesses and successful lives will require blueprints. Oscar will compare building a business without a plan, which a lot of people do, unfortunately, to building a house without architectural drawings. The thing is that without structure, direction, and intentionality, growth becomes chaotic and unsustainable. And then people end up wondering, why are they so overwhelmed? Success is built through intentional execution. And who better than Oscar to talk to us about that? Let's dive in.
Once you establish what is important to you, then you figure out how to get it done. So this week is about implementation, okay? All about implementation. Hopefully, you all got clear on what you want, what is a priority for you, and what truly is something that you want to live your life by. In other words, the things that actually make a difference to you, the things that will actually make your life better, happier, feel more fulfilled, and all the things that, again, you have designed for your life. So interestingly, when we set priorities or we define objectives, 80% of our decisions are made subconsciously, which means only 20% is left to the conscious mind. So when you go about defining your priorities are defined in a conscious way. The problem is you act in unconscious ways. And that is one of the primary reasons why we have a plan, and yet it is so hard to implement the plan. It is so hard to actually deliver on those things that have become priorities for you, relevant to you, or things that you consider important to you. So we're living kind of on two different realities, one being the conscious reality, one being the subconscious reality. The problem is the subconscious is so much bigger than the conscious because we are used to it, because we go about surviving, not necessarily thriving. There's all kinds of reasons why our subconscious makes more decisions for us than we would prefer. So this is one of the reasons why we do not achieve our goals and we do not achieve our priorities, or rather why we have difficulty achieving these, okay? So what is it that you value most and what is it that you do the most of are not the same thing. One is intention, the other one is reality. And most of the time what we see is that those two are not in alignment And thus we are not happy. We don't feel satisfied. We don't feel fulfilled. We don't feel that we're getting everything out of life that we should. Okay. So, question to you all becomes, how intentional are you being about making your priorities precisely that, a priority in your day? How do you go about making decisions on what gets addressed on a certain day, a certain week, a certain month, or in a certain year, versus just letting it happen when you remember or when it is convenient? Okay. So I use an example that I like very much. One day I will build a house from scratch. And so I would ask you all the following. How many of you would set out to build a house without a set of blueprints or a plan? Would that be the way to go about building a house? Because you can grab a whole lot of 2x4s and start, hammering them away and putting them together. And without a real plan, what you're going to get is a disaster. So without a plan, you can't build a house. The same applies to all of us. Without a plan, you cannot build a business plan. Without a plan, you cannot create a life plan. And yet we go about running our business and running our lives without a blueprint because we don't take the time to question ourselves and figure out, what is it that we really want? What is it that is really valuable to us? And more importantly, then how do we become intentional about it? So the same way you wouldn't build a house without a plan, I would invite you to stop building a business or building a life without that plan. Implementation plan. The implementation plan is really getting to the nitty gritty. It's, how am I going to achieve all of these things? So the purpose of an implementation plan is the following. Understand the 5 whys. Who is going to do what? What is exactly going to happen? When is it going to happen? Why is it going to happen? And then the fifth and last one is not really a W. It ends with a W, which is how. So it's 4 W's and I call it 5. Just remember the fifth one is opposite. So who, what, when, why, and how. If you're not capable of answering those 5 W's, you have no plan in place. You have no blueprint. So let's talk about the 6 steps to an implementation plan. And there could be 10, there could be more. I just picked 6 because I find these 6 actually guide me very well when I'm trying to define what my plan is going to be. Okay? Towards the achievement of a goal. So the first one is define your goals. What am I all about? What do I want to achieve? What is valuable to me? Why is it important to me? In a business setting, you're going to conduct research. Research is all about finding out whether that plan that you have, that desire that you have, first of all, what it really means. You're going to break that down into little pieces. You're going to define what it actually means to you, what possibilities you have of achieving that plan. What do you have in place that could favor the achievement of the plan? And what do you need or not to achieve it? In other words, do I have the right amount of staff? Do I have the right priorities in place? Do I have all the risks? And this is the third step. Map out your risks. What are the risks of me engaging in this versus something else? Remember, when you make one decision, you have to give up another decision. You cannot take on 100 different things. So if this is now the choice of what I will do, what is my opposite? In other words, what am I dropping because I cannot do 2? So far we got to define the goals, conduct research, map out the risks, schedule your milestones. In other words, what are you measuring against? When do you finally look at it and say, wow, this is coming along very well? What metrics are you going to put in place at every, interval where you say, time to check in and decide whether I'm in the right direction? It is not fulfilling my needs the way I thought it would. So I'm going to pivot on this thing. And what is it that I am not doing whatsoever? Assign the tasks, who does what, by when. And this applies to you as well. Meaning, if it's a private, personal thing, then you know who to assign the tasks to. So what specific tasks are you going to assign to yourself? What is your to-do list? And we'll talk about the to-do list. The to-do list is not a laundry list of endless things. To-do lists are things you have to accomplish according to your timeline. So if part of the overall building of this house means or calls for you to today go to Home Depot and buy the following things, well, that is your to-do list. Your to-do list is not an endless list of, oh, and by the way, I will have to do all these other things, because then the to-do list is not achievable. A to-do list shouldn't last more than 2 or 3 days. If it lasts you more than 2 or 3 days, it's not a to-do list. It's a strategy, or it's an implementation plan, or it's an action plan. A to-do list, we always confuse to-do lists with, implementation plans. To do is just a step towards that implementation plan. And finally, allocate resources. So again, define your goals, conduct research. Are these goals realistic? Are these goals really what make me tick? If it's business related, what are the goals for your business? I'm going to achieve $100 million. Well, can I achieve $100 million? Am I in a practice area that can generate $100 million? Do I have the staff? Do I have the marketplace? Do I have the marketing? Conduct the research on how realistic is your plan or your objective relative to what you have to deal with. When I was working years ago, and I don't remember how well or not well we were doing. I remember Erica said to me, I said to her, we need to make more money. And she said, well, you've chosen an automobile that generates this kind of power. If you want more power, you need to change the automobile. And the whole, story was about, listen, if you want to make more money, you've chosen a job that can pay you X amount of money. So you need to change the job, or you need to change the method by which you are getting to your objective. And that was very real. I said, all right, you are right. In the job that I currently have, I will not make this kind of money. So I need to make some adjustments. So that's the research that I'm talking about. Is it possible to achieve what you want with what you have? Or do you need to change your car? Car being not your automobile, car meaning the vehicle by which you will get to your objective. Third, map out your risks. What gives in order for this to be achieved? Because if it is really valuable to you, you will give up something else. If it isn't valuable, you will give it up for a little while until you come back to your habits. Schedule milestones. How are you going to measure your progress? What metrics are you going to have or put in place that will allow you to assess objectively whether you are on the path or not on the right path towards the achievement of your goals? Assign the tasks. Who does what? By when? If it's me, well, what do I do? When do I do it? How do I do it? But it's either you or somebody else, but it has to get done. Otherwise, you will not get to where you want to go. And finally, allocate resources. Yeah, I would like to do this and I would like to do that. Well, how much money are you putting behind it? And your answer is, well, nothing really. Then you can't achieve it. You cannot achieve that which you are not allowing resources for. Okay? So please remember, and this is your homework for today. Your homework for today is to either create your implementation plan. The first part is the strategic plan. What do I want? And the second is the implementation plan. How am I going to get this done? So go over your plan or create your plan. And when you're done with the creation of the plan, answer the 5 whys. Who does it? What gets done? When it gets done? Why it gets done? And how does it get done? So I'll take your questions.
I had my priorities, and the one that I chose was, or one of them relating to money, was what my annual revenue goal was for my business for last year. But as I'm hearing you talk this morning, it makes me think of my why, and why I want it to be that is, to have more, to be wealthy for my family. And so now I'm trying to figure out if I need to potentially change it, and where it's not just, my year-end goal for my business,
Okay.
but really, is it something that I want to, where I see myself, or where I want to be in 5 years or 10 years,
Got it.
so that I can kind of massage that into how I'm going to set up the implementation.
Okay. What do you love to do? What is your number one hobby? The one thing that anytime that happens, you go after it. You don't even bat an eye.
I would say going on adventures and traveling.
Good. So let us say for 1 second, I hook up with you socially and I say, we're going to Kilimanjaro. We're going to just hike that mountain and it's next week. We got this unbelievable trip. We got, the world's leading, climber, and we're going to Kilimanjaro. Are you in? And you will answer what to me?
Absolutely.
Then what happened to your plan of becoming, rich? I guess it went down the drain, didn't it?
Well, I have a team that's making all of my riches come true.
And how good is that team actually performing? How do you know they're actually going to get it done?
Well, let's see. We have,
by virtue of the fact that you have told me you want to be rich, I know you don't have a structure in place that will get you that. So let's start, getting real here. It's a nice to wish for, but you're not there. Because if you had the team, you'd already be rich. These are facts.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't give me shit. You would get on that plane, bring on your hiking boots, and go to Kilimanjaro instead of building your firm. Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, when you put it that way,
is there any other way? Seriously, you would get on the plane and come climb. You would. So I'll go back to your real objective. You want to be rich. And my question to you is why? You have the answer. It's just in the wrong order. So to you, making money is important because it's going to allow you to do all these other things.
Yeah.
The problem right now is that your desire for the adventure is much bigger than your desire to make the money that is going to eventually pay for all these trips. In other words, your short-term vision of your goals is much stronger than your longer-term vision.
Got it.
And so you're not going to get to first base. In other words, you're never going to make money so long as you got somebody flashing shiny, bright objects of adventures in front of you, because you're always going to go that way. Why am I bringing all of this up? Because unless your objectives, unless your strategic plan, unless your desire to achieve whatever it is you're trying to sell to me that you want to achieve is stronger than anything else, you will not get it done. You will find all kinds of excuses. You will find all kinds of reasons why this comes first and the work I need to do comes second.
Okay.
So understand in your implementation plan, why? Why is this so important? Why am I going to sacrifice going to Kilimanjaro this year and put it off for the next 3 years? And you have to be able to answer that question. And the answer might be because if I hold off, it's like the marshmallow experiment. You guys have done the marshmallow experiment? Marshmallow experiment was a group of kids who got put in a room and they were given one marshmallow and told, if you hold for 5 minutes, I will give you 2 marshmallows. Hold meaning you will not eat that marshmallow. And the kid is left alone in a room for 5 minutes or whatever the amount of time was. And he's got this marshmallow in front of him and he's twirling with it and playing with it and picking on it and trying to hold back from eating the frickin' marshmallow because he knows that if he waits 5 minutes, he gets 2. And so most kids cannot wait and they just eat it. And 5 minutes goes by and the person comes in the room and the marshmallow is gone. So you don't get a second one. It's a delayed gratification. And we are not used to delayed gratification. So unless you understand why making money is important to you, it will always take second seat to any other priority you have.
Okay.
And so you'll never get to your objective. And yes, once you're at the top of Kilimanjaro, you own the world and you're like, I'm the biggest, baddest, person in the world. And you will then say, shit, I should have stayed in the office because now I don't know, or I just got a call about how bad things are going. And while I got my rush, I got a mess of an office and I'm not going to make the money that I set out to make. Lisa, that was at a workshop I did, the marshmallow. Okay, so, and then the next question, well, define rich. How much is rich? Is it $1 million? Is it $10 million? Is it $100 million? What is it that you want to do? What is it about the money you want to make that is so important? How are you going to use it? Otherwise, there's no purpose to it. So unless you start tying all these things together, these things come as independent objectives that could be swayed in different directions based on your lack of commitment to them. Okay? That is why we always say, show me your calendar and I will tell you what your priorities are. Because if I pick out your calendar and I see that you have, going to the gym, rock climbing every day, then yes, you are an adventure junkie and you want to do these things. bad enough that you work for 8 full hours or 9 full hours and you still find the time to do that. That is when I can see that you have a soccer game in there. And when you tell me that a priority for you is your kids, well, yep, it's in her calendar. She actually has that penciled in as part of her day. So it's not just work, work, work. She has a balanced life for priorities that she has established for herself. And you do not allow anything or anybody to interfere with those priorities. So the soccer game is there. It doesn't matter what comes up. At 6 o'clock, you got a game, so I got to go. And you behave in accordance with your priorities. Again, you do not allow your subconscious to make decisions for you. You allow your conscious mind, which is only 20% of how you think, to guide what you're going to do next. Okay?
Okay.
Good deal.
Thank you.
So welcome back. In today's episode, Oscar Ferenczi challenged you to stop operating reactively and start building intentionally. One of the top takeaways from this episode is that clarity alone is not enough. Knowing your goals is important, but that does not ensure success. Success only happens when there is a clear implementation strategy behind those goals. Without structure, priorities quickly disappear under distractions, emergencies, and daily pressures. Another key lesson from this episode was the importance of aligning your calendar with your actual priorities. Oscar emphasized that your schedule reveals what you truly care about and what truly matters to you. Entrepreneurs who intentionally plan their time, protect their priorities, and create systems around their goals are far more likely to achieve long-term success. And finally, this episode also reinforced the idea that building a meaningful business requires long-term thinking, delayed gratification, strategic planning, and disciplined execution. All those will allow you and every entrepreneur to create businesses that will support the life they truly want to live. The overall message on this episode is very simple. If you want different results, you must create different plans. And if you want sustainable growth, you must become intentional about your execution and implementation. And that is exactly what the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast is for. And now will be your turn to take action. Here is to your exponential growth. Stay healthy, stay hungry, and stay focused. And we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast. We encourage you to take action on it today. Share what you've learned with another entrepreneur. Sign up for our newsletter to get bonus content you won't get anywhere else at exponentialentrepreneur.com and subscribe to the Exponential Entrepreneur Podcast to receive the next episode. Until next time, keep breaking through limiting beliefs and growing exponentially.